10 months ago, RWBY Volume 6 Episode 13 concluded RWBY's season with the following line.
Manta 5-1, welcome home.
And now that all has come to pass, our stretched out patience that had tormented us throughout RWBY's hiatus period has finally been rewarded. Volume 7's first line of dialogue are those exact words, now fully expanded upon as RWBY is finally ready to bring us closer to the Kingdom of Atlas, and ready to grant us access to the stakes present in this conflicted kingdom. With our main protagonists bracing themselves to confront the trials ahead, how effective is Volume 7's first 18 minutes? Well, let's get started. Before I get into the meat and potatoes of where RWBY Volume 7's storyline has taken us thus far, let me take a moment to sightsee for a little bit. The environment that now surrounds Team RWBY & Co. after departing from Argus's delightful sanctuary they found within the home of Saffron and Terracotta Arc is far from delightful. Despite what a passerby drunkard would tell you after hearing someone bad-mouthing their kingdom, I can still appreciate the beauty of Mantle's presentation and how it sells that undelightful feeling. The city of Mantle almost takes me back to Morgue City, featured in Black Ops 3's Shadows of Evil. Everything feels tightly wound, and the bloated presence of Atlesian authority, technology, in addition to the floating structure hovering above the city, only enhances that feeling of being trapped in a cage like a rat, giving me a sense of Atlas's perspective of how above the world they think they are. However, needless to say, there are still figures and remnants long forgotten history that have reached heights beyond anything that Atlas could hope to reach. Alongside these visuals comes the lighting. It does a phenomenal job of selling the feel of this ruinous city. The first thing I thought of within RWBY when thinking about the hazel orange lighting radiating on every street corner in Mantle was Menagerie at the break of dawn. That lighting back in Volume 5, combined of course with the differentiation in its island's visuals, made me feel like I was in tranquility, in the middle of a paradise, albeit a cursed one. Meanwhile, with Mantle's darker, artificially lit up streets combined with the fact that we're viewing this city in the middle of the night, I feel a sense of dread. Not to the point where all my senses are buzzing, with a horrifying presence lurking in the dark, but just enough for me to hold my breath in hopes that the protagonist finds shelter, so evading authorities or any unwanted attention are made a possibility ASAP. Do they succeed? Well, keeping a low profile is hardly something the characters know how to do, so... Also, the red alarms going off during the first fight as the city is under attack by relenting sabers looks really nice, contributing to the team's initial spotlight of fighting off Grimm attacking the city, even if some others see that as unwarranted, but I'll get to that later. Now, I know I'm about to take a step backwards here, but can I just appreciate how pretty the skybox is? I understand, yes, that Atlesian presence weighs heavily with so many of their ships deployed at once, but hot damn, I do appreciate how captivating it appears, since I have a bias towards the color blue. And the contrast between Mantle and Atlas helps me differentiate what it's like to live above and below, similar to 2013's Elysium and the planet of Coruscant. Not everyone lives a life of luxury, after all. Now, since this is the first episode, I wanted to take a moment to save any comments I would have about other visuals for the next part of the video, and just talk about the intro momentarily. I love it. Not only is Casey Lee Williams' cover of Trust Love fantastic, but the 2D animated sequences and stills are very reminiscent of RWBY's color trailers back in the day. Both the new and returning characters, both potential allies and enemies, look intriguing enough to make me care about the hint of the volume's future. In addition, paying homage to the series' roots through excellent use of transitioning between Team RWBY's outfits over the years was an excellent way of seeing how our characters have progressed over the years to the present day. And last but not least, one of the greatest touches of all, paying homage to RWBY's creator through a momentary glance at the relic of creation shining through the dark is not only an excellent acknowledgement, but also makes me cautiously curious as to how powerful this relic may be. And yet, my thoughts towards how powerful creation may be is not limited to the world of Remnant itself. As we've seen throughout RWBY's past, being handed the power to create something can prove to be a challenge, thus leading to circumstantial imbalances that sways the quality of the final product. And this had occurred within the show as well. Those responsible for this world's origin abruptly depart and leave it in the hands of those whose differentiating creative visions may end up foiling the creation instead of improving it. But since that's all behind us, I hope both RWBY and the audience can appreciate this series' progression despite its ups and downs, and gaze upon the new era of quality dawning upon this show. Speaking of a new dawn, that shot of all the characters underneath the orange, blue, pink, and purple Atlesian sky is breathtaking. I'm glad that Rooster Teeth begged for us to watch the first episode before the intro, since I understand that people are very sensitive to spoiler material that could potentially send shockwaves throughout the RWBY community. So now that I've covered what's said on stage, let's take a look at the most crucial part of what makes any story function within a setting created by the respective artists. Let's flash back for a moment. Special Operative Caroline Cordovan gets caught up in a fight against the remnants of Team Juniper, Team RWBY, Crow Bronwyn, Maria Calavera, and Oscar Pine, with the use of her Grimm killer mech, Colossus. After 2 cataclysmic disarmings and the vaporization of the Leviathan, Cordovan and co. eventually come to a mutual agreement, thus changing her mind on a request previously shot down. With that, the group took to the skies and departed from Argus as their ship continued to make its way closer to Atlesian airspace. This is where we're reintroduced to the story at the exact point where Volume 6 had ended, which is kinda neat since nowadays, in my experience, it's rare for a series to pick up immediately from where it left off. The few examples I can name is the jump between John Wick 2 and 3, and the small amount of time that's passed between The Tortured Path and The Frozen Dawn in COD World War II Zombies. Since we're starting off at this point in time, it means that our characters are still exhausted from what they've just experienced, both physically and mentally. It may have been 10 months for us, but for them it's only been less than a day. But that doesn't stop them focusing on the task at hand. They have the Relic of Knowledge still in their possession, and they need to get it to the ones in charge of Atlas, preferably Ironwood. But after descending into Mantle, problems already present themselves. I've described earlier about being trapped in a cage like a rat. Well, General Ironwood, on giant screen spouting a scripted announcement of safety and security, really sets the stage of the volume's premise, begging the question, who can you trust? If the scale of this enormous city and Atlesian authority is what's separating the group from the people they need to see, then Crow being friends with Ironwood won't exactly help with the situation they've been forced into, being in a stolen Atlesian ship and all that. Speaking of Crow, in case some of you have been living under a rock and are wondering why he sounds slightly different, well, after a whole can of worms that I'm not going to dive into right now, Rooster Teeth disconnected themselves from Vic Mignogna, and the task to carry on Crow's portrayal was left to none other than Jason Liebrecht. So please, do be kind to Jason and ensure that he feels welcome. In my opinion, he's already done phenomenal work with the character, and I'm thrilled to hear more from him. While we're still on the topic of close relations not being a major asset in this situation, like Ironwood, Winter Schnee makes an appearance once again in the main series for the first time since Weiss's Volume 5 character short, and she's in a new outfit no less. Like Ironwood, she too is making scripted announcements to the city of Mantle, and Weiss, being her sister, might not exactly be the best option in this point in time, especially since she'd rather avoid being returned to her father at all costs. As Ironwood and Winter are representing Atlesian authority, to them, it's their way or the highway, and when being placed on a pedestal as high as being the embodiment of Atlesian power, not everyone is going to simply submit. One thing I gotta say, especially since it's one of my favorite plot points in the show, we're in the heart of the place infamous for Faunus labor, so it's no surprise that right off the bat, we're witness to Faunus workers loaded away in trucks, which I can imagine is making Blake even more anxious to maintain a low profile. She understands more than anyone how the pain of Atlesian oppression has affected her Faunus comrades on an emotional level. And yet, she chose to travel with her teammates despite it being a risk due to her Faunus heritage. However, she'd cast off her demons not too long ago, and this time, she has her teammates to face the kingdom of Atlas with her. But before the group can do anything, they needed to take slow steps. Thankfully, Maria Calavera still has access to a contact within the city, and they're the reason why she was heading to Mantle in the first place. With or without the group, she'd have gotten her eyes adjusted. But now that she's with the group, she'd get to introduce one of Atlas's greatest minds, Pietro. Besides appearing to be a classy, humble man volunteering his efforts to the pharmacy he works in, what's so significant about him in relation to our characters, you may be asking. Not only is he responsible for overseeing quote-unquote the future of Atlas for General Ironwood, but he oversees development for ordinary people that need his assistance when it comes to their prosthetics he's made to get them back on their feet, similar to Yang Xiaolong. On the contrary, he oversaw the development of Team RWBY's past, no thanks to a daughter, and it looks like we finally found the man that created Yang's prosthetic arm, that helped her slowly but surely help her get back on her feet, even if she was afraid to do so at first. But that's not all. Pietro has been with us in the show for a long time, and we hardly ever knew. I'm talking way back in Volume 3, when we witnessed the brutal, accidental execution of Penny Polendina in the middle of Amity Arena, before disaster abruptly concluded not only the Vital Festival, but another iconic character that left everyone heartbroken. Thankfully, due to Pietro's ingenuity, he was able to take his invention, or as most of you would prefer to hear, his daughter, and rebuild her so she may yet again be combat ready. That's right, Penny is back. She's stronger than ever, has a vastly better arsenal, superior to the Atlesian Knights in every way, all while retaining a conscience and a soul. But let's not get it twisted. Penny may be a combat-ready, badass, Grimm-slaying machine, but every single ounce of personality, alongside her previous memories she'd had with Team RWBY at Beacon Academy, all remain intact. And she may have completely swept the floor with the Saber Grimm that the main gang was fending off, but they all respectfully fought like hell in a fast-paced fight sequence that was brilliantly animated. Penny may be here, but that doesn't make the rest of them unneeded or obsolete in my eyes. Besides, Penny would be glad to fight alongside them anytime. Also, who'd have thought that 4 months ago, the preview showcasing an early build of the fight sequence was moments before Penny's return. But she's here now, and in more ways than one, Penny and her father are free to act on their own, to an extent, without being absorbed into the rest of the regime for the sake of creating a stoic worker/soldier following orders without question. Pietro's got some free thought, personality, and frankly, an intolerance for all things nonsensical. But he doesn't have a stick crammed up there, for a lack of a better term, like father, like daughter. Also, Penny and Pietro have pink bows. That's sweet. Unfortunately, as expected, not everyone affiliated with Atlas will be as lenient as Pietro is, and I guess Crow didn't want to fly himself out of this situation. This is where ace operative Clover Ebby and his team of 5 enter the picture, as the characters are restrained, relieved of their weapons, and loaded in the back of a truck to be taken to Atlas for further questioning. Doing the right thing isn't exactly a motto in the eyes of Clover and his fellow ace ops. To them, if the rules are broken and things aren't up to code, such as our characters having yet to receive their licenses and snuck their way into Atlas's boundaries in a stolen ship, their original mission becomes irrelevant in the moment as rules and consequences trump free will and just causes. Overall, The Greatest Kingdom is a relatively solid introduction to Volume 7, and honestly works a lot better than it would have been if Volume 6 ended where this episode did. Its introduction to Mantle and the Kingdom of Atlas was an eye-opener, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future of the volume holds, whether if we descend into the mines below, where the miners labored away, or ascend above the clouds, where bloodlines, inheritance, and brute authority dominate the kingdom's society. And with that, that's all for my review, everyone. What'd you think of the premiere? Love it? Hate it? Let me know down in the comments. Before I go, thank you to the following patrons for supporting the channel. And if you'd like to support the channel as well, there's a link down in the description and on screen if you would like to consider being a patron as well. As always, if you made it to the end, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this all the way through. Until next time everyone, I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.